I walked every day for a month after 60, and the first thing that changed had nothing to do with my legs. I want to tell you what actually changed in order, ending with the one that mattered most. Not what I hoped would change, not what I was told would change, what actually did. Some of it was smaller than I expected. One of them was much bigger, and it took me about 3 weeks to notice it was even happening. I am 62. I have started walking properly maybe 4 times in my life and quit 3 of them. This time I did not quit. And the reason I did not quit is the last thing on this list. No miracle cures, no scare stories, nothing to buy, just what's actually true. I am going to count down 3 things, from the smallest change to the largest. The one at number 1 is not physical at all. It is the only one of the 3 I would have been genuinely sad to lose. And I am saving it for last because it is the reason the rest of it stuck. Maybe you have noticed your sleep breaks around 4 in the morning now and will not start again. Maybe you have noticed you are slightly out of breath carrying the shopping in from the car, in a way you were not a few years ago. Maybe you have started quietly arranging your day so you do not have to go up and down for the same thing twice. I know, I have been doing all 3. I thought that was just age. It wasn't. Not all of it. And the part that isn't is the part worth knowing about, because a direction is not a destination, and directions can change. Number 3, my sleep moved before my legs did. I did not start walking to sleep better. I started walking because I had been meaning to for 2 years, and I was tired of hearing myself say it. So the last thing I was watching for was my sleep, which is probably why it took me 11 days to notice. Here is what it had been like. I would go down easily enough around 11. Then at some point between 4 and half past, I would be awake, completely awake, and that was the end of it. I would lie there doing sums about the day and get up at 6 feeling like I had been at work all night. I had decided that was simply what sleep was now. Everybody I know says some version of the same thing, so it felt less like a problem and more like the weather. What I found out is that the 4 o'clock waking did not stop. I want to be accurate about that because this is the sort of place where people tell you it vanished. It did not vanish. What changed is that I started going back down afterwards. I would wake, notice I was awake, and then be gone again. And the next thing was the alarm. 20 minutes of being awake instead of 2 hours of it. What it seems to come down to is that a body that has been outside and moving in daylight is a body that settles more easily at night. The change was not that I got more hours. It was that the hours stopped being broken in half. And that is the reason the walking survived past the first week, because I was not doing it for a benefit somewhere off in the future. I was doing it because of what happened that same night. Number 2, the way home stopped being the hard part. For years, the walk out was fine, and the walk back was a negotiation. I would get to the corner by the post box and work out how much I had left in me and whether I had already gone too far. I never told anybody that. I would come in the door and say it was a nice morning, and what I actually meant was that I had made it. I assumed that was just what walking felt like now. What I found out is that it was not the distance at all. It was that I was starting every single walk far too fast. I was going out of the front door at the pace I used to walk at 40, because anything slower felt like giving in. 20 minutes later, I was paying for it, and then I would blame my age for the bill. So here's what I changed, and it is small enough to feel like nothing. I slowed the first 10 minutes down. The rule I used was that I had to be able to say a full sentence out loud without stopping in the middle of it. If I could not, I was going too fast. That is the whole test, and it runs on your own doorstep. I started at 15 minutes 4 days a week, not 30, not daily. 15, 4 days. And I stayed there 2 full weeks before I added anything, which felt slow at the time and is the only reason I am still doing it. Then 5 minutes more, and 5 more a fortnight after that. That is the whole progression, and it is deliberately duller than the ones you will see elsewhere. If getting out is not on the table, bad weather, uneven pavement, or standing for 15 minutes genuinely not being where your body is today, the seated version does the same job. Sit forward in a firm chair and march your feet, lifting one heel then the other, at a pace where you could still hold that sentence. Same 15 minutes, same 4 days, same 2 weeks before you add to it. Holding the back of a kitchen chair and marching standing is the step between the two. And one thing that matters more than any of the numbers: if something hurts the next day in a way that does not settle, that is a sign to do less of it, not to push through. I have never regretted doing less. It felt ridiculous for about 4 days, like I was barely walking at all. Then in the second week, the walk back stopped announcing itself. I noticed it by its absence. I got to the post box and realized I had not done the arithmetic because there was nothing left to work out. Not how far I could go, how the second half felt, a completely different question from the first. Number 1. The walk stopped being the point. For the first fortnight, the walk was a thing I did and then ticked off. It sat in the day like a chore with a good reputation. I did it, I came back, I felt mildly virtuous, and the rest of the day carried on exactly as it always had. Then, somewhere in the third week, the order of the day quietly rearranged itself, and I did not notice until my wife pointed it out. What she said was that I had stopped waiting for the afternoon. I had got into the habit of treating the first part of the day as something to get through: coffee, the news, a bit of sitting, and then eventually the day would start of its own accord somewhere around 2. I had been doing that for years, and I would have told you it was just how I am built. It was not how I am built. It was that nothing had happened yet. The walk turned out to be an event early enough in the morning that everything else lined up behind it. I came back in and put a wash on. I answered the letter that had been on the side for a fortnight. I rang my brother, who I had been meaning to ring since Easter. None of that is a health benefit. Nobody is going to make a video about answering your post, but it is the only one of the 3 that changed my life rather than my body. The walking did not make me a different person. It put something at the front of the day that was mine, that I had chosen, and that was finished before anybody else needed anything from me. Everything else moved in behind it. And once that happened, I stopped having to talk myself into the walk at all. It was not the thing I did for my health. It was the thing that started the day, and the health was a side effect. I have quit walking 3 times in my life. Every one of those times, it was a chore with a good reputation. This time, it was the first thing that happened. And that is the entire difference. What didn't change? Now the honest part, because a month of walking is not a transformation, and I am not going to sell you one. On timing, the sleep moved first. At about a week and a half, the walk back got easier in the second week. The thing at number 1 took 3 weeks and I did not spot it myself. If you are 2 weeks in and waiting to feel different, 2 weeks in is early. And stopping at 2 weeks is the mistake I have made 3 times. On what it did not do. My weight did not move, not a pound, over the whole month, and I had quietly hoped it would. My knees still make the same noise going down the stairs that they made in March. The stiffness in my right shoulder, which has nothing to do with walking, is exactly where it was. And some of this is just a body that has done 60-odd years of work. That is allowed. Not everything that has changed since you were 40 is a problem to be solved, and I would rather say that plainly than pretend a walk fixes a life. If you are managing something already, or you have been told to be careful with your heart or your joints or your balance, this is worth one conversation before you start rather than a decision you make alone on a Tuesday. Not because walking is risky, but because the person who knows your history can tell you the starting point. And I cannot. There is nothing to buy in any of this. No shoes, no app, no stick, no tracker. I used the shoes I already owned and a watch I already had, and I would gently suggest that anything sold to you for this is being sold for somebody else's reasons. Tell me in the comments what you'd like explained next. I read every single one. If this was useful, a like genuinely helps it reach other people our age who would rather be told the truth than be frightened into buying something. And if you would rather understand what is actually happening than be sold a miracle, that is the whole reason this channel exists. 3 things changed in a month. My sleep stopped breaking in half. The way home stopped being a negotiation. And the day stopped waiting for the afternoon. I went out to do something for my legs, and my legs were the least of it. Here is to the healthy living years.